So ever since the current generation Mazda 2 was launched in South Africa in 2015, it's become quite loved by compact hatchback enthusiasts, buyers, whatever you want to call them, Mazda enthusiasts as well, because you've seen quite a lot of these on the road over the last couple of years. But back in December 2019, the Mazda 2 received an update, and I am pretty keen to check this out in a little bit more detail. I'm Dean Friederich. Welcome back to another video. This is the Mazda 2. Let's go take a look. So in terms of what's different from the pre-facelift Mazda 2 and this facelifted model that we got in December 2019, if you look at it very quickly, you can't really tell much of a difference. And you can decide whether or not you think that thing or a bad thing. And to be honest with you, I couldn't really tell what was all that different either, because I could only tell when I was driving on the road behind a pre-facelift Mazda 2 of this shape. So in terms of its overall exterior design, it is still very much the same. And that's not necessarily the worst. Yes, they've added a couple of different things, like, you know, some new bits and bobs, trimmings and stuff like that on the back. That was what I noticed. If I'm not mistaken, some new alloy wheel options and that sort of stuff, which is normal for a mid-life cycle facelift, you know, zhuzh it up just a little bit. But the interior, I will definitely say, is my favorite part of the Mazda 2, specifically because it reminds me a lot of the CX-3 that I had on test a couple of months ago. The layout is very, very similar. And it could possibly also have something to do with, you know, Mazda just having a sort of general brand identity where all the interiors in their cars look the same. But I really like the interior, especially for a compact hatchback. It's very, very schmancy. I mean, from the leather here on the dash with the stitching and these really nice two-tone leather seats on this model, which is the Hazumi, the range topper, your multifunction steering, all the nice bits and bobs that I think most of us have come to expect from cars today. It's nice to see that even in a compact hatchback like this, Mazda hasn't really skimped out on offering you all those nice things that you would get on some of their bigger and more expensive models, because it feels like the bigger, more expensive models inside here. So as I was mentioning, this is the Hazumi. This is the range topper, and I went onto the internet to go and look up and see what exactly does Hazumi mean. And from what I saw, I could be wrong. I don't speak Japanese, so please don't cancel me if I get this wrong. But in Japanese, Hazumi means spring up, like jump up, or I would assume that kind of thing. And I think that's a very cute name for a compact hatch like this. And so far, so good after test driving this car over the last couple of days. Interior is a very, very comfortable and very nice place to be, especially with smartphone integration on this infotainment system. So in terms of mechanics, the Mazda 2 is powered by a 4-cylinder 1.5 litre naturally aspirated engine. You do have an option of manual or automatic depending on which model you go for in the range. There's a total of 5 different models in the Mazda 2 range, starting from the Active, which to my knowledge is only available in manual, and then as you go higher in the range you have the option of manual or auto. This Hazumi that we are driving, this is an automatic, a 6-speed auto, which I really like. I'm such a sucker for an auto. I'm telling you, in my late 20s and now turning 30, I'm becoming such a lazy driver. I hate manual these days. But this one, oh, it's nice. And even though it's an auto, which generally would be a little bit higher in your fuel consumption than what a manual would be, I've been averaging 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers. Not the best, but most definitely not the worst either. I would go as far to say as for an automatic, that is not bad fuel consumption whatsoever. This 1.5 litre engine produces 85 kilowatts of power and 148 Newton meters of torque, which I must be honest, I have not had any issues with. Specifically, I think because of the size and because of the weight of this car, it's not that difficult to pick up speed, you know, when you want to overtake on the highway and when you want to pick up some momentum on an open road or anything like that. I've really had no problems with that over the last couple of days. And speaking of driving on the highways, the heads-up display on this Hazumi model with the cruise control functions right here on the steering wheel, highway cruising is a breeze. This might be a compact hatchback, but it cruises so nicely on the freeways, and I really, really like that about it. This auto box makes it just that extra bit more comfortable on the highways and dwelling around town as well. Alright, so you probably want to know how much this car costs. And this is where I think things do get a little bit tricky with this Mazda 2. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, 5 different models in the range, and the Mazda 2 starts at a base price of 295,000 Rand and goes all the way up to just under 396,000 Rand for this Hazumi. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that that is quite a lot of money for what is essentially an urban compact hatchback. And at face value, I would say that you're not wrong. Because when I first, started doing all my research before we came to film this review today, I also thought to myself, I was like, some biggie buy, ne? But you can also justify it in a couple of different ways. For example, right? Let's take another compact hatchback that sells very, very well in South Africa, the VW Polo Vivo, and compare it to this. So let's take the top of the range Vivo GT, and that would be a few tens of thousands Rand cheaper, I don't deny that. However, you don't have the option of automatic. You don't have this very, very Lani interior layout. Make no mistake, the interior layout on a Vivo is not bad. I mean, that car is a successful model in South Africa for a reason. But I do think that with the Mazda 2, specifically this Hazumi model, there are a couple of things that this car offers which does set it up, a cut above the rest, if I can say that. For example, a heads-up display, this really nice two-tone leather interior, the reverse camera at the back, the rear parking sensors as standard, the fact that you have an unlimited mileage warranty for 3 years, an unlimited mileage service plan for 3 years. There are so many different ways that you can look at the pricing of this car. It's tricky, and I think that that does also have something to do with why I don't think I've ever seen many Hazumis like this version on South Africa's roads. I've often seen the lower specs, the active, the individual. I think there's a dynamic one as well, if I'm not mistaken. I do stand corrected, but I know that there is active and individual most definitely in the range. So it's difficult. It is a bit of a tricky one. But if you also look at it from a perspective of, okay, cool, I only drive around town. I only am going to be driving in urban settings all the time, and I still want to make sure that I'm driving in something super comfortable. Speak of the devil, there comes a Vivo behind me now. Beep, beep, hello. Actually, now that I saw that, just reminded, blind spot detection as well in your wing mirrors. So you see what I mean? There is a lot of value available in this car. So at face value, it does seem pricey. But when you look at it in detail, it actually is very good value for money. One thing I will say though, is I do think that it's time for a completely new shape in the Mazda 2. This update is nice, it looks good, it's not a bad looking car at all, but I do think the design of this one is getting a tiny bit long in the tooth. So it may be time to update the design of this car. How nice is this color? Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dean Friederich. I hope I've answered any questions you may or may not have had about the Mazda 2. Please don't forget to like this video. Comment below, what do you think of the Mazda 2? Do you think it's good value for money? What do you think of the design? Do you notice any changes on the facelift? And of course, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so that I can see you on the next video. Bye!